It was 5 a.m., and the cold air outside wrapped around the store like an unforgiving grip. The darkened streets seemed deserted, except for the occasional car speeding past. But inside, the warmth was almost suffocating. The bright, fluorescent lights flickered over rows of gleaming electronics, and nervous employees scurried about, preparing for the madness that was Black Friday. Black Friday wasn't just any day. It was the storm every retail worker dreaded and anticipated in equal measure. The lines, the rush, the crazed shoppers, nothing was ever calm. I'd worked at this electronics store for over a year, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened that day. It wasn't the fight over the last TV, or the long lines that nearly wrapped around the store. It wasn't the angry customers or the stress. No, it was something else, something worse. It all began with a phone call. By 5:30 a.m., I was already sweating, even though the temperature was barely above freezing outside. We were supposed to be ready for the flood of customers, but the anxiety in the air was thick. The store looked like it had just been restocked for battle. Rows upon rows of gadgets, laptops, and TVs, all waiting to be swept off the shelves. But there was one problem. The staff was too small for the upcoming war. We'd been told to expect a full day of madness, but no one really ever expected it to be like this. I glanced at the front door, watching the early bird shoppers cluster, eager for the opening. Their faces were a mix of excitement and greed. But it wasn't the customers that worried me the most. It was the fact that Darren, our manager, still hadn't shown up. Darren was usually the first one in, barking orders, running the show. He had everything under control. But today, he was nowhere to be found. His absence wasn't like him, and I could feel the unease settling in. Maybe it was the exhaustion from the week's prep. Maybe it was the dread of the impending chaos. Either way, it didn't sit right. I checked my phone. It was 5:45 a.m. The store would open in 15 minutes. Still, no word from Darren. My phone rang. I almost let it go, thinking it was a customer calling for a quick inquiry. But something in my gut told me to answer. It was Darren. "Hey, Alex." His voice was strained. It didn't sound like him at all. I'm not going to make it in today. There's an emergency at home." I was taken aback. "What? But it's Black Friday. You can't leave me alone to handle this." I know, but I've called everyone I could, and there's no one available to take over," Darren continued almost apologetically. "You'll have to take charge today. I'll try to check in every hour, but it's up to you now." I felt the floor drop out beneath me. There was no way I could do this on my own. Not with a flood of customers about to rush through those doors. I can't do this alone, Darren. Please." My voice trailed off, but I knew it was no use. "Just do your best, Alex. You've got this. Good luck." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, the weight of Darren's words sinking in. "My name's Alex, and I've worked at this store for just over a year. I've seen my fair share of chaos. Angry customers, misbehaving children, inventory mistakes, even a few fights over the last gaming console during holiday sales. But nothing had ever come close to Black Friday. I'd always assumed the people who worked in retail on Black Friday were a breed of their own. How could anyone survive that? The crowds were wild. People fought over discounts as if they were the last items on Earth. It was the ultimate test of patience and endurance. I had always prided myself on being dependable, the go-to person when things got rough. But today, I was in way over my head. The team was scattered throughout the back room, getting ready for the madness. I had to act fast. I couldn't just wait for Darren to swoop in and save the day. This was my moment, for better or worse. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the challenge ahead. When I walked into the back room, the team looked at me expectantly, waiting for direction. "All right, guys," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Darren's not coming in. It's just us today. We can do this if we stick together. Let's keep our heads and get through this, okay?" I could see the concern on their faces, but they nodded in agreement. We had no choice. We had to push through. The moment the doors opened, the madness hit. A flood of people surged in, almost knocking the doors off their hinges. The lines stretched to the back of the store. I watched helplessly as a woman practically bulldozed a man out of the way just to grab a discounted blender. The chaos had begun. I immediately took my place behind the front register. The first few customers were easy enough to handle, but the tension in the air was palpable. Everyone wanted something. Everyone needed something. And no one had time to be patient. The line grew longer. The atmosphere grew tenser. I tried to keep up, checking out customers as quickly as I could, but it wasn't enough. There weren't enough cash registers. There weren't enough employees. And there were definitely too many angry shoppers. Then it happened. The first fight of the day. A man, probably in his 50s, barged up to the counter with a huge flat-screen TV. A young woman, barely 20, was right behind him, holding the same model TV. Both were determined to get the last one. "Excuse me," the woman said sharply. "I was here first. I should get the TV." The man scoffed. "You're not getting it, sweetheart. It's mine." Before I could intervene, the woman shoved him. Hard. The man staggered back, nearly knocking over a display of headphones. In an instant, the situation escalated, and the two were in a full-blown physical altercation, shoving and yelling at each other. My heart raced as I dashed toward them, trying to stop the madness. "Stop! Stop!" I yelled, but it was no use. People gathered around, cheering them on, egging them on like they were watching some sort of twisted entertainment. I had no choice. "Call security!" I shouted, but no one had the time. The fight was getting more intense. As I watched helplessly, a customer grabbed a nearby chair and threw it toward the two brawlers. Thankfully, it didn't hit anyone, but it stopped the fight cold. Security finally showed up and escorted both customers out. As the doors slammed behind them, the store went eerily quiet. But the silence didn't last long. Another fight broke out near the back of the store, where a man was trying to grab the last pair of gaming headphones. The madness was relentless. The next few hours were a blur of chaos and exhaustion. The shelves were being emptied faster than we could restock. The lines at the registers were never ending. Every time I thought we might catch a break, something else went wrong. I had to keep my head, despite the mounting pressure. Then, just as the day seemed like it might break me, something unexpected happened. One of the employees, Sarah, stepped up. She'd been quiet for most of the day, but suddenly, she was everywhere. She tackled the customer complaints with ease, diffused arguments with the calm of a seasoned pro, and even managed to calm down the surliest of customers. It was like she'd been secretly training for Black Friday all year. I watched her work, amazed. She had become the glue holding us together. If it hadn't been for Sarah, I'm sure I would have cracked under the pressure. Finally, after hours of pandemonium, the store began to empty out. The customers were gone, and the store was left in disarray. But we had survived. Barely. My body ached from the stress. My mind felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. But we had made it through, and that was something. Darren had sent a message around noon saying he was on his way back, but by then, I was already mentally checked out. As I walked out of the store, finally done for the day, the exhaustion hit me. It was 11 p.m., and the city outside was dark, quiet. My feet hurt, my head throbbed, and my mind couldn't focus. But amidst all of it, there was a strange sense of accomplishment. I had survived Black Friday, and somehow I'd held it all together. Have you ever experienced a Black Friday disaster like this? Did you ever have to handle the chaos on your own? Share your stories in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories from the retail trenches.